right, so we're back. Let's say that we want to do something a little more advanced, right? So we figured out how to create a Node application or Node.js application, right? We got our page running and saying hello world. We figured out how to change the content type so that it writes in HTML rather than regular plain text. And now, eventually what we want to do is we want to create websites with different pages. So we need to understand how routing works with Node.js. So again, our Node.js Notes for Professionals, they're really quick tutorials. So hello world basic routing. Let's look at that one, which is 1.6. Okay, so we understand how to create a server with Node, right? Because that is what we did, and I have here the code on the right-hand side from the previous video. And now we want to figure out how to do routing. So, when a user goes to the home page, we want to give them the home page. If they go to an about page, we want to give, or if they go to the about link, we want to give them the about page, and so on and so forth. So we see it starts relatively the same, right? So we need that HTTP module to create our server. Again, I'm leaving the port here so it's easy for me to change and so that I can link it here much more easily. And it looks like now we have this function that creates an index page. So we have, gonna take this guy out and we're going to create a new function called index. We're going to have a request and a response. And because this function has a name, we don't use the equal sign caret. We actually have the name and then we use our regular curly braces, right? We have that keyword function there. So we're going to go ahead and write this. And notice how they have response and hello world. So instead of saying write and then end, we're saying, hey, this is the only thing that we're going to say. Right, we're not going to give you any more information, so as soon as you get this text, you can assume that the connection is done. So I'll go ahead and just change this to and tells browser that all info has been sent. So I'm going to get rid of this here. And again, we want to have multiple pages. So let's say we have another one for about. I'm going to call this function about. And then I'll change this to say about me. And let's do one more. You'll see we're doing a lot of copying and pasting, which we should all know that as programmers, copying and pasting your own code is not good practice, right? Like there's a better way to do this. We can simplify something if we see that we are copying and pasting a lot. And for this week, this is fine. We'll see next week how using a module called Express helps us reduce the amount of copying and pasting that we're doing. All right, so we have index about, let's call this contact, and I'll say contact us. All right, so we have our three functions, index, about, and contact, and they just write the respective titles. So now what we have to do is update our server so that it actually has all of our routes. Right? And so this is the example of if we use just one. But what happens again when we have several ones? Okay, so we want to store our routes in an object. Okay, so we can do that. Looks like we're going to have to do some moving around again. So I'll start up here. Var route equals And it looks like this thing here before the colon is what the actual route is going to be, right? So how does the user reach that? So the index page, they reach by going to nothing, right? It's like when they first go to the website. And so I'll stick this guy in here. Gotta remember to indent everything. All right. And let's see, we have the about. I'll go ahead and take this guy and move him over here. And then we have the contact. So I'll take this guy and put him over here. Do my indenting. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit so that we can see more of this. All right, so now we have our routes defined. So the three functions that we wrote earlier, we just stuck inside a variable and said, hey, this guy is going to lead to this guy is going to lead to this guy, and this one is going to lead to this one. So we're making progress. So we've stored our routes, and now in our main callback, we can use the fact that we have these routes already stored here to check which link or page the user is requesting for and give the appropriate response. So this first if checks if the URL requested is in the routes, right? Because let's say that they go to /form, right? There's no /form, so we need to do something if they try to access something that's not there. Otherwise, the user is not going to know that they reached something invalid. So we'll deal with that in just a second. So but first, if it is in there, we want to make sure that we give them the correct response. So what we can do is we can actually, and if you see this formatting is essentially a JSON, right? So you can access what these guys are as the first, you can essentially index into it and then access the function. So we're going to index into that URL. Request that URL gives us the thing after 137 in this case. And we see that our function call uses a request and response, and we're getting a request and response. So we want to pass those over as well as parameters. Can't forget our semicolon. All right, so we said if there's a response, right, or if they access the correct URL, we want to give them the response. But if they didn't, this is where we want to say, hey, something went wrong. So I'll just copy this and update it. And if we remember, status not found is 404. And we can say page not found. All right, so let's see how this runs. Let me kill the server and restart it. Oop, something has gone awry. Oop, I forgot my commas. That's what it is. All right. Okay, so we've got our localhost running. Cool, so the home page gives us hello world, right? And the home page, again, there's nothing, it's just a slash, right? There's nothing at the end, so we get hello world. We also had about, so this should give us about me, and it does. We had contact, okay. And super, super important to note that this is case sensitive. So just like when if you had contact.html lowercase and then you tried to access contact.html with a capital C, it wouldn't work. This is the same thing. So if we try to access contact with a capital C, it's going to give us that 404 page not found. we try to access anything really. Also, note that the index page currently only lives when there is no URL, right? When it's just a slash. If we were to do /index, it wouldn't work. So I leave as a thought exercise for you. What would you change in the code so that both index and the slash gave you this welcome or hello world page?